Hey Outlaws, and welcome back. We're going to talk about some more swords, and today a possible, and I want to emphasize unlikely, but a possible Civil War era sword on Florida Beach goes viral. Here it is right here. You can see the handle. It's got some growth on it. The sheath is all but gone. You can see a little steel blade or iron blade at the bottom. Now, before we get crazy with it, I just want to let you know that it's very unlikely. Possible, but unlikely. Think about it. It's got to be steel, right? Made during the Civil War era. And if you ever pay attention to the Civil War era, or specifically with manufacturing, is that things are often manufactured very, very cheaply. Because just true as any military, industrial complex, blah, blah, blah. Basically, anybody that's causing warfare or taking advantage of warfare or benefiting from warfare generally wants to go as cheap as possible. As cheap as they can get away with without it being so bad that it's just obvious to everyone that, hey, this is like putting all the troops in jeopardy, or this is like endangering the war effort, which sometimes still doesn't really cause much alarm. But anyways, I digress. So this was discovered by a gentleman who was out 30 yards supposedly out in the water looking for shells and whatnot. Then he saw a piece of the sword sticking up. It was found over at Pensacola Beach, Florida. And let's go a little bit into it first before we go with exact locations and my 2 cents. So the sword is believed to be either a or a replica of a heavy cavalry sword circa the 1840s. I went ahead and pulled up a website here for you just so you could take a look to see what it looks like. Oops, well, it's not as big as I was hoping, but I'll put the link in the bio. But here's pretty much what it is. You know, you've got your sheath, okay? You've got your blade as well. You've got a basic, like probably leather wrapped, fake leather wrap. It could be brass. It could have been iron too. It really just depends. I think this picture right here makes it look like it was brass, just because it's not completely corroded or taken away. And now here's why I think too. Well, before I get myself. So that's what it looks like. Okay, let's go back. Now they reached out. The couple reached out to a couple of an archaeology network and also a museum as well, I believe. And they were reached out, most specifically the Florida Public Archaeology Network, said they got an email from this person, and then also discussed about the postings on online with social media, and they took a look at that. The lady said she reached out and asked what we thought about it and the legality of the situation, because remember, if it's a relic, kind of like we talked about this channel before with Viking swords, Roman swords, it's like if it's a grave, there's legalities that surround it. That way you don't have grave robbers or modern day poachers come to take advantage of it, or committing sacrilege against people's graves, or, you know, ruining people's graves, or like, you know, disturbing them. That's not a really good thing. So Sacco obviously did not bring the sword in for them to examine in person. And what they're saying is they can only evaluate the sword based on the picture, but they did the best to answer questions. The biggest thing is that it doesn't look very heavily encrusted or oxidized, which from the person's statement is we would normally expect from a steel blade that's been in salt water for over 150 years. If you Google the sword, which we did, you find a lot of places correct replicas online. So someone could have just been messing around during a reenactment or just a collector, and somehow it got dropped in the surf and then they just completely lost it, which, trust me, there's a reason why people go out on beaches all the time and like with a little metal detector and constantly scoop things out. They'll find like wedding rings and all sorts of other kind of craziness, because you can find quite a bit. Because there are markers or stamps on the sword that we look for to determine if it was authentic or not, because obviously it had to be created by a blacksmith and they had to put their stamp on it, or would want to put their stamp on it. That way they could show off the product or could prove that it's theirs. Now, the thing is that they've got a lot of attention from this specific sword, and I want to take a look at why I think it's not. It's close by a location where an actual battle, some battles and skirmishes occurred. So in this, they said the skirmishes unfold during Civil War between encampments of Union soldiers at Fort Pickens, which is on the west end of Santa Rosa Island. Now, if you want to know where Santa Rosa Island is, I pulled up for the map for you. It's right here. And Pensacola is right here further west. Okay? So as you can see on the map, Pensacola Santa Rosa. So it is close enough where theoretically someone back in the Civil War could have dropped it into the ocean or near the ocean, and then either tides went up, went down, whatever, and uncovered it or somehow magically made it not completely deteriorate. Now, my problem with that is that steel, or at least iron, corrodes 5 times faster in salt water than fresh water. And when you have salty, humid air, and let me tell you right now, Florida is super humid. You're talking about like suffocatingly humid. They cause iron to rust 10 times quicker than normal air would. So this sword, even though it looks like this as compared to this, just isn't very likely, especially when you're thinking like the amount of time that has passed, 150 years. I just don't think it's an actual relic. It's cool. It looks awesome. But I do think it is most likely a replica that was used in some kind of reenactment, or was for some reason being transported maybe to the reenactment by someone who lived in Pensacola. Because you look at Pensacola right here, it's a dense city, and then you go over here where Santa Rosa Island is, not so dense. Yeah, I mean, obviously you have the Chattahoochee Bay right here, so you know that's obviously was a very important port for the Confederacy during the Civil War and eventually the Union. So I could see someone that lived here in Pensacola, especially with so many people being into reenactments, especially in the southern area, that sword could have been transported there or lost there and then found. In fact, I'm going to go with that. But, you know, let me know what you think in the comments. And Outlaws, we'll see you next time.